5 or 6 vote difference. And the problem with Act 13, among other things, but I'll stick first with the budget aspect of it, it does not ask the industry to pay its fair share. The countrywide average for the gas drillers is about a 5% drilling tax, which is about what it pays in most other states. Some states like Texas are a little higher, about 7%. Some states are a little bit lower, by about 4%, but about 5% is the average statewide, nationwide. The fee that was passed in Act 13 amounts to not quite 2%. It is an optional fee by county where the drilling is occurring. And 40% of the money goes back to those local communities, and 60% of it comes to the state, mostly keyed towards some environmental programs, but really not enough revenue to make a difference either on that. Now, it raises, on average, about $120 million statewide. The problem is, that assumes that every one of these counties enacts the fee, and as I said before, it's optional. Many of these counties are likely not going to enact the fee. In fact, Bradford County, which has the largest number of wells being drilled to date, has already indicated that it does not want to enact the fee. That's a problem. And it's a problem because it means that we're not even going to raise that $120 million. It's going to be less money than that. So, what we are going to need to do is have a more reasonable stream of revenue from that, and this is not going to provide that stream of revenue. A 5% gas drilling tax, just so you know, would in fact raise about $350 million statewide in the first year, and the estimates are after the first couple of years close to $500 million. So that's a considerable amount of money, and it could really help us fund some of these critical needs that we have in the state. The second point about Act 13, less related to budget, but no less important, has to do with its environmental impacts. It includes something called preemption of local zoning ordinances, and that means essentially that the state has now set new rules on local zoning that local towns are unable to override. So, for example, under Act 13, drillers can put wells and drilling facilities in residential districts, and local communities can't do anything about it. The only restriction is that it can't be any closer than 500 feet from a home or a structure, not your property line, your house or your structure. So that really ties the hands of local governments in a way that I think is not good, because it doesn't give them the ability to be able to protect their citizens, which is, at the end of the day, as a former local elected official, I can tell you, is a key component to local government that we want to try to protect. So that's the second problem with Act 13. The next problem with Act 13 is it doesn't provide adequate setbacks from where the wells are being drilled compared to water supplies, so that these wells can be much closer to private wells, public drinking water supplies, whether they're rivers or reservoirs or lakes, and that ultimately presents a contamination risk to those water supplies, because if the casing of the well is not done properly, when the gas and the water comes back out of the well, when they're extracting it, the methane gas and other gases can actually get into local aquifers, which can contaminate water supplies, and that's a problem. So you want to have far wider setbacks so that the migration of any either bad water or gas will not be able to reach local water supplies. But Act 13 doesn't have adequate setbacks. Again, compared to other states, it's not doing what it ought to do. So that's something that we have to try to undo. I have gotten up on the floor of the House every week since it was passed to basically speak about that and say that we have to overturn those parts of that law. And every time I've been gavelled down because the majority doesn't want to hear me. I'm going to continue to speak out about it because I think it's important. And in fact, I'm going to offer legislation that will attempt to fix the setback requirements, and it would also double the bonding requirements that these companies have to post for every well, so that if there's a problem, there will be money there to be able to address the problem, and it won't fall back on taxpayers.